It's all a scam, and this is how they're doing it.
Texas has some of the highest property taxes in the country. Despite efforts cutting them at the state level year after year, they never seem to stay down. Why? The number one culprit? Your local ISD and the profiteers who use them like an ATM. Every time the state slashes your property taxes, local ISDs seize the opportunity to hide an increase in them through new bonds and cash grabs.
So this right here, this whole video actually reminds me of the Midland College bond scam. We just defeated $450 million. We voted it down, right? But it also reminds me of the Energized Midland scam they just pushed last year, and it got passed $1.4 billion. So they stated in that last election that this would not raise your property taxes, but you heard what they just said. That's exactly what they did in this situation. We got a tax break from the state. Midland College, or Midland, not Midland Works, Energized Midland, my bad, y'all, these different phrases and names, there's a reason they have them. All these people that pushed that bond, they used the tax break that we got from the state and said that we would not get a tax rate increase. Now, on the actual ballot for Energized Midland and that scam bond that I voted against and was against also, but I wasn't too privy of it, to be honest. I wish I would have got involved more earlier. I digress. It stated on the actual ballot it was a tax rate increase. Energized Midland lied to the people saying that your taxes will not go up. Again, they saw an opportunity. They took it. We got a break from the state on our property taxes, and they went in there and they slid this huge freaking debt on us, y'all. It's freaking crazy. But again, this video is basically parallel, explains all this stuff to a T, exactly what's happening and what has happened in Texas, y'all, especially in Midland.
Technically assuming most voters won't notice the offset. Last school year, the Texas public education system spent $93 billion.
And real quick, I want to go back what he said. They were expecting people to not even know about the bonds. I believe that's what happened with Midland College. We caught wind of it. I got involved. A lot of us got involved, and we started just picking the holes in their shoddy presentations and their weak planning. We got them, y'all. We exposed them for the lies, but they expected the citizens to not even know about this bond. A lot of citizens didn't even know this was up for voting in an off season during May. Nobody even really knew about this, y'all. They're freaking sneaky. And I saw the main guy. I'll just call him AC on this video. The first video I seen him make, he was selling, playing the part. Empty rhetoric, I call it. Oh, yeah, we're going to make sure that we're transparent with the citizens, what they're going to pay. We're going to have all that available. They can ask questions. Hell no. At the end of it, you saw it. If you follow us on Facebook and all the content we made, boy, it got to the nitty gritty, and they were pissed and upset that we basically messed up their whole plan to tax us with this huge freaking bond, y'all. They didn't release itemized reports of the spending. They didn't take questions. They didn't issue corrections. At the end, y'all, they were just trying to squander and win, and they lied. They even sent out a pamphlet, the last flyer you would get from them, saying that it would not raise the property taxes of people 65 and older. Big lie that Midland College put out there at the very end, and we found out that was a lie from the very beginning. And these radio show hosts and the local media covered up for them, and we have it all documented. It's crazy. They're liars, the profiteers.
Notice the offset. Last school year, the Texas public education system spent $93 billion. And currently, Texas school districts hold over $200 billion in bond debt, almost all of which is paid for by your local property taxes. Only about 40% of that annual spending and none of the bond debt is used to improve educational outcomes.
None.
Instead, most of the money and all of the debt fund a vast network of vendors, consultants, lobbyists, associations, and political organizations that work together to squander taxpayer money.
See, and that's what I was saying. I was like, this don't make no damn sense. I was like, why are they pushing this bond so heavy? Now I know the Energized Midland, they're going to talk about the numbers in a minute, how much money they spend to promote these bonds and how much money they actually get back from the kickbacks and all the, the funneling of the money. But I kept saying, why do they want to do this bond? They don't love education that much. There's no freaking way. They're out there constantly on the radio, promoting it, sending you flyers. They had over $300,000, y'all, in their campaign war chest. We only had about 13 to 15,000. They had 300K plus, and they lost. because we stood up against them. We actually made history. It was a legendary move we made. I have other clips. But the point is, I kept wondering, why do they want to do this? And it makes sense. They have all these people putting their hands in that cookie jar, y'all. That's exactly why they wanted that money, because they were going to get some of it. I knew it. I knew there had to be a reason why they were doing this. I was like, man, there has to be another reason. Of course, it's always about the money. It's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Squander taxpayer money. These are the profiteers. For decades, the system has been rigged to ensure that the money always comes in, your property taxes always go up, and there's no accountability for how it's spent.
None. There's no accountability. Now, MRT reported that they're already going to start laying off workers and maybe even teachers in the MISD district, whatever, right? That's the head of the schools, whatever. These people are not held accountable. So they're going to be getting rid of staff and teachers, whatever, right? They can't even keep teachers, can't even get teachers here, but they need this big old bond. And then I've already heard rumors and grumbling of people saying that, where's the money at? They've already squandered a lot of this freaking money. I'm telling you, it starts to disappear. And I made a comment on a post on Facebook. I said, watch, they're going to end up asking for more freaking money for these bonds. Somehow it goes somewhere. Like I said, they're not accountable. They're not held accountable. Midland College had an itemized list that we had to force them to even put out, which is had like 25 million here, 10 million here, 3 million here. Like they just threw all this money in these different, slots just to appease us, I guess, but it still wasn't good enough. And we kept pressing them. No, we want to know what heavy equipment and what you're putting in what classes, whatever. We want to know exactly what it is if we're paying for it. The dude AC said on the radio, we'll get it to you. He never did. And then we caught wind, a whistleblower told me that they were just waiting for that money to hit the account and they were going to allocate that money how they wanted to. They already had it planned how they really were going to spend the money, but they didn't tell us how they're going to spend it. Because once they got the check, y'all, we're cutting them a blank check. They're going to do whatever they want with the money. And they were just waiting to get that money to move it around how they wanted to, y'all. Scandalous.
The dollars flow into school districts from the state and local government, as well as deceptive bond packages approved by voters in local elections. School districts then sign lucrative contracts with the profiteers to provide services, financial, architectural, and construction consulting, non-teacher professional training, and direct legislative lobbying. These associations, like the influential Texas Association of School Boards, or TASB, make recommendations on which vendors the school board should use. These so-called preferred vendors have a near monopoly on building lavish stadiums and facilities, building expensive new technology and software, and offering high-priced financial consulting. The associations also use their power and influence to partner with radical activists and plant ideological indoctrination into schools.
It's all true. It's all a freaking scam, everybody. Wake up.
Ever wonder how inappropriate and sexually explicit material ends up in the classroom? Look no further. To show appreciation for being a preferred vendor, they use the profits from their contracts to sponsor conferences, non-teacher trainings, entertainment nights, and other events for the association's membership.
Exactly.
But it doesn't end there. The profiteers want more projects and more contracts, so the schools need more money. So the profiteers infuse cash into a network of political front groups that constantly push to increase public education spending.
Exactly what we're dealing with, y'all. There's a bunch of them. And they're watching us already, but we're not going to stop. We start going through these lists. It's all a paper trail. They have nonprofits. They have all these groups. They have all the heads of these groups, big time, leaders down at City Hall. I mean, it's corruption from the top to the bottom. I honestly believe my whole damn city is corrupt. Every department, I'm going to say it right now, from what I've researched, it's actually worse from what I've been told.
These shadowy organizations have charitable-sounding names, like Pastors for Texas Children, the Bexar County Education Coalition, or Friends of Texas Public Schools, creating the false perception of a large, organized grassroots effort. But they're all funded and managed by the profiteers to support the politicians and political action committees that help maintain the system that keeps the money rolling in.
They all have nonprofits. And the ones that have all the nonprofits, it's the same people. Again, it's a money trail. You just start following the money, follow the nonprofits, follow the names, and you're like, damn, they own so many, or they're sitting on the board committee or whatever you call it, of these nonprofit groups. It's the same group of people, everybody.
In perhaps their most brazen act of self-dealing, the profiteers also fund the propaganda campaigns that get voters to support the local bond packages.
See, the propaganda, that looks just like the vote yes, energize Midland. It's all propaganda. They are brainwashing you. It's a trick. And someone even told me this, which I already knew. I digress, but the propaganda is real, y'all.
Just a little investment in pushing voters to believe that a district desperately needs a new football stadium or auditorium can reap massive contracts for these companies. For example, in 2022, Northside ISD in San Antonio passed a $1 billion bond. The firms that contributed to support the campaign raised less than $180,000, yet to date have received over $337 million from Northside ISD. In other words, for every $100 the average profiteer spent on promoting that bond, they've received over $188,000 in return from the district.
And that's crazy, but check this out. Energize Midland. Their Energize Midland Schools Political Action Committee, a PAC, raised over $530,000, primarily from Midland energy companies to promote the bond. The opposition PAC, Midlanders for Excellence in Education, raised $10,000. And Move Midland, a nonprofit opposing the bond, spent $33,000 on campaigns, including mailers and ads. $530,000 versus $40,000. And of course, Energize Midland, they lied. They ran a campaign full of lies, and they had more money, and they won. This last election, Midland College had about $300,000 to $350,000. We had about $15,000, and we won because people got involved and we were informing people, and they were informed voters, and they said, hell no, we're not going to vote for this debt. And I'm going to say this real quick. We're actually one of the only cities that did not go for this crap. 313 bonds were pitched to the public in this last voting season, right? With over $41 billion. That's how much the debt was. That's not including the interest, y'all. The Midland College bond was $450 million bond with interest 30 to 40 years that we'd be paying every month on our taxes on our homes. Even if you rent, the whole city is going to pay for it 30 to 40 years. It was going to be $1.1 billion with interest. So anyways, it was 313 bonds were pitched, $41 billion worth of these bonds. Texas already has $500 billion in local debt, according to the Texas Public Policy Institute. Places where the bonds passed. This is not a complete list. Arlington, Plano, Flower Mound, Garland, Seabrook, Frisco, Killeen, Spring Branch ISD, Red Oak ISD, Blue Ridge, Lubbock County, San Angelo. Oh, San Angelo got screwed, y'all. Alamo Colleges in Bexar County. Midland and Odessa were one of the few cities that did not fall for the bond shenanigans, y'all. I give a big salute to West Texas. But everybody else did. 313 bonds, y'all. And Midland and Odessa were one of the few. I want to say it's 5 or 6 out of all these cities were some of the few that did not fall for this crap. It might even be less. Let's continue.
When Prosper ISD passed a $2.7 billion bond in 2023, the profiteers that funded the propaganda campaign contributed an average of $4,600, yet received contracts averaging more than $11 million. The examples go on and on and on.
So that means they, on the Energized Midland, raised $530,000. You know, how much did they, that investment, how much did they make off of the $1.4 billion bond they got, right? They put up $530,000 and they got $1.4 billion. Same thing with Midland College. They put up $350,000 to $300,000 and they were planning on getting $450 million. See what I'm saying? They just get this money from these whoever donors and they invest in hopes of winning. That's not too bad of a gamble, is it? Be a taxing entity, put up a bond that nobody even knows that's even going on, the voting in an off season, put up $300,000, $500,000 and get $1 billion in a bond. And then you see where it goes to all their people. Not even a big chunk of the money even goes to the schools. This is a freaking racket, everybody. And this video explains perfectly what's happening. I'm telling you, it's freaking crazy. I had to make this video.
The system is rigged to
Yup.
incentivize more spending and more borrowing of your tax dollars every year. And that is why educational outcomes will never improve. and why your property taxes will never go down. It's time to hold the profiteers accountable and take back the future of Texas.
That's what we're doing. And somebody commented on my TikTok video. I just made one saying that we need to get involved, and they said it'll never change. That's the sad thing about it. I said, well, with that attitude, it won't change, but not us. I'm gonna cut this video kind of short here. It's already 15 minutes, but I'm just gonna say, y'all, this is a crazy video. There's actually two more I'm gonna react to, but this basically describes the racket it is with these bonds in these cities in Texas in particular, and how we'll never get out of this debt unless we stand up and vote against this crap. You see what they do? You see, it's like a monopoly. It's like a damn racket. That's what it is. I kept calling it a scam, and it was, and it is a scam, y'all. With that, I'm out of here. And to the people watching, you bonders and pro-taxers, I hope you don't like it.